Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our Roundtable Sessions. My name is Sarah Filion. I have the Matilda Swanson Gallery located in Clarksburg, Ontario. We represent about 30 to 40 different artists. Most of them are local, but we do have some from all across Canada as well. Today's group of artists, again, are all artists that are showcased in the gallery. We have Peter, Suzette, and Olga. Welcome, and thank you for virtually being here today. Let's begin with some introductions. Suzette Terry, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
I live over in Meaford. I have a at-home studio, and I've been painting since forever. Actually, I started thinking about it 30 years since university. Holy crap! And teaching, and being involved in the arts community. Like to paint colorful stuff, and it's usually pretty unique.
Is that your artwork behind you?
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Peter John Reid, out in space.
My studio is on the space station. I've been painting up here for quite a while. No, my studio is out in the country south of Clarksburg. A little bit south, but mostly west of Clarksburg. I paint landscape, anything from small to very large, and really love doing it.
Olga Cooper.
Well, I feel very honored to be in the company of these artists and yourself. I'm an encaustic artist, and just started a few years ago by taking a course at the Southampton Art School. I'd like to mention that I took an acrylic course with the esteemed Peter John Reid, by the way. I don't know whether he remembers me from a year and a half ago. And I'm also familiar with Suzette because she's involved with Paint Ontario. So I feel very fortunate to be in all of your company. Yeah.
It's kind of you to say.
I used to be a teacher, elementary teacher. I've been a school board trustee. I was a real estate agent for 20 years. So yeah, now I'm retired and this is what I do.
Thank you. We were supposed to have Michelle Rose with us today, and unfortunately she had a family emergency she had to attend to. This group I have in my book as the sassy group.
You like that, Peter?
Let's start with question one. How or what inspires you to start a new piece?
What inspires a particular piece? Usually something I've seen out and about, or I have a selection of 50,000 photographs that I'll be glancing through, and I'll see something, and usually I'll flag it to paint later, but sometimes it just catches me, and that's the one I got to do right then and there. So I'll proceed. Sometimes I'll do a small one, but most times I just go right into the large one.
I'll go next, I guess. For me, it's about, I know when I look at something, it has to have some kind of graphic quality. Large shapes, forms, those are the things I get excited about, and whether it's about, and often it's about the energy of that space or place. There's a group of girls I go up to Killarney with, and Algonquin, and being out there in the environment and it's from the sketches that I work from, and those, if I do that, it's a much more energetic painting, and I'm really pleased with it in the end. And I never know how they're going to turn out. Everyone's different. It's fun. It's the reason I do it. I don't know why anyone else paints. There's no point to it if you don't love it. So
I tend to look for happy things. I guess especially in the last couple of years. And happy can be, it can be animals, it can be, well, not that I do a lot of animals, but it can be anything that's brightly colored, florals, any kind of landscape, anything that makes people smile. That's how I kind of view what I like to do.
yeah. Yours is playful.
Yeah, true.
Animated.
Yeah. Thank you.
Unusually colorful.
Well, actually, that is a characteristic of all of us. The work is all colorful.
I was just going to say that I find that with all of your art is colorful. Yeah, compared to a lot of other artists, I think you use color quite a bit, like a lot. Yeah.
I've been working on graying things down.
Oh, well, gray.
Subtlety, not my finer point.
Well, gray's an in color in interior trends. So yeah.
Yeah.
How do you know when the painting is done? I'm looking at you, Missy.
You know who's talking to is me, right? I could beat a dead horse to death. I can. Usually if I stop fussing with it, feels comfortable, I leave it alone. But I don't always recognize that sometimes. How about you, Peter?
3 things. One would be time has run out and I have to live for the pain. Another is been working on it for an hour and I'll look at it and say, I can't see an appreciable difference. And then the other one, I've just run out of steam. Like the energy's not there, so it's done. I've always liked what Leonardo da Vinci said, painting is never done, only abandoned. Because you can get a piece back and you think, oh, I could do that. And I did that once where I got a painting back and I said, I'm not going to stop until I can't see anything else to do. And I worked for 3 weeks on this. It never got to the point where I said, I'm done. It just changed. It morphed from what it was to something different. Not better, not just different.
Yeah, that's what happens for me. I change one thing. Of course, change the one thing. Something else has to change to balance that. And then something else changes. It's like changing and moving a picture around in a room. Now something else doesn't work with that painting, and it can be an endless.
Sort of like a squirrel painting.
Put my nuts over here.
Oh gosh.
Even so begins.
Yeah.
Well, I just say for mine, after I've worked on it for a while and I bring it upstairs, often I'll kind of hang it on the wall and look at it for a day or two and decide, is that it, or does it need something, or should I totally forget it? And one thing with encaustic, you can definitely melt a lot of it down if you're not happy with it and kind of restart parts of it. So yeah, I think sometimes it takes maybe a day or two of just looking at it. And I think we always have to remember that just because I don't particularly like a painting that I've done, it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone won't like it. There may be someone out there who is happy with that kind of thing. So yeah, it's an interesting process. Yeah. And I was just going to say to Peter, I was amazed. I took my art class with you at Maggioli's in Orangeville. And I was amazed at how wonderful he was with all the, with with all the students. He was incredible, really. I mean, as a teacher, I would have thought some of them asked some very annoying questions, but you know what? He handles it he's such a pro. Yeah.
I'm going to have to make that world a little bit smaller in the background to leave room for my head.
Suzette, I remember walking into your studio one day and you had the abstract mountain piece, and I walked in and you said that was just the underpainting. And I said, no, it's done.
I think she took it from me, actually.
And I took it from you. I said, you're not touching this.
Actually,
You're done.
done that a few times.
Yeah. And then, revisiting a painting, you just picked up that one behind you yesterday of the ladies Friday nights so that you can edit. Would be Diane Lingenfelter's favorite term is edit, edit, edit. Do you think there's a difference between educated artists and self-taught artists? Or do you think it matters?
Just to clarify, you're talking about formal education as opposed to
Formal art education?
As I have 7 years post-secondary art education, as well as went to an art high school. And what I learned on my own and by taking classes separately. I really do not have a very high opinion of art schools in general. It's sure it gives you a base of the, how about a little bit about the tools, but when I think back on my art education, I'm very disappointed with it. I went to the Ontario College of Art, studied design and fine arts, and I think I learned quite a bit in the high school art program, and introduced me to things like ceramics and we had life drawing and
Go to Beale?
C.W. Jeffries. It was one of 4, I think, dedicated art schools, high schools in Toronto. But I don't think anyone who's just come up through, I think it's important to get the education, but I think it's far more important to get it from practicing artists. And not all of them can teach well. But a lot of them, once you get a certain level, you don't really need a great teacher. You just need to see how different artists produce the work. And even visiting galleries is an important part of the education, like seeing what other people are doing. And that's one of the things I think we're really blessed with right now, because I can see people in Australia and South Africa, and I'm not talking about masters, I'm talking about the artists that are working now, which I always equate to being more interesting art in that, like, I mean, if I wanted, would I want Graham Bell's phone or do I want an iPhone? And so that's where I want to see what the artists, not what they did, what they're doing now.
And I like that comparison.
I should weigh in too. I've got one of those degrees. So I went to Guelph, got a honors degree in fine art. And then what else did I do? And then I've taken 2 sessions with it's called Art to Life out of the States, which is pretty much equals another, I would say, a university degree class easily.
Is that an online
yeah.
thing?
And it's 6 months all intensive. And I tell you, I actually probably learned more there than I did in university in some degrees. I would say I picked up a lot of color stuff in university. Obviously, technical skill, did a lot of life drawing. But I would say when I actually became, at least my style of art, was when I got together with other artists and started painting the model. And I was luckily invited along to join this group who were all 20 years my senior in most cases, but anyway, in that wonderful network of artists, I started to develop my own style. And I think that's the one thing that really can't be taught, and you have to listen to your own little inner voice and do what interests you and what you like. And it's one of the things they teach in this Art to Life. It's about what you do in your life, how it inspires you, and how those things connect. That's the stuff that comes into your work, and being true to yourself. And that seems to be the hardest thing for most people to develop in their own signature style, is being true to themselves. They'll mimic other artists, they'll copy, sure, that's a nice thing and all, but hey, you gotta learn to be yourself somewhere along the line. I have met some self-taught artists who I have to say were really great as well. So I don't say, I don't believe that education is the only way to approach art. I think discipline, practice, and determination are the bigger factors, more so than an art school background. But you, Olga?
Well, my beginnings of art goes back to, I went to graduated from the University of Windsor, not in art, but I managed to take 2 or 3 art courses as part of my years there. And the one thing that was great, it opened me up to thinking a lot more and just having a much wider range of what art was all about. And we used to go for visits, for example, to the Detroit Institute of Arts, which was, I don't know if it is today, but it was a fabulous art museum at one time. But anyway, And the encaustic, I just picked that up. As I said, it was just intended as a fun thing. And I kind of discovered a whole new world. And I quite agree with you. It's kind of, I think it's okay to have a balance of both a little bit of formal classes, but a whole lot of just creative and have fun with it. Do what you like. And I think it's a combination. And I think I find the people like yourselves that are sort of very open to all kinds of things really appreciate art at a different level than, say, the people who have just had formal education. That's just my feeling.
Yeah, those that apply it as opposed to those, who put it to practice.
Yeah, yeah. And just more inclusive of all kinds of art. Yeah. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Very, very good point, Olga. I never thought of it that way, but it's very true. Your last comment. Are your friends and family mostly creative?
My wife, Bonnie, is also at Matilda Swanson Gallery, so yes. But that's it. I guess my dad was a painter, but he was more interested in music, and so once he got himself an electric organ, he never painted again. But he was definitely at an amateur level. I mean, good eye, see what he saw and painted, but no formal education, no classes or anything. But other than that, he's the only one I know of.
In my family, French Canadian on my mom's side and English on my dad's. Lots of art. I have an uncle who's a wood carver. A whole bunch are musicians on my mother's side, and a bunch of other cousins who are artistically inclined or even great photographers. And then within my own family, I have a sister who did graphic arts for about 5-6 years. She's probably more creative than me, but maybe not as driven, I guess. And then I have a brother who at the age of 12 played in drums for a country and western band across the province for a long time. And then he got into DJing and
well, my background, my mother was Austrian, and I think I told you this. Her name was Matilda. So I always immediately loved the name Matilda Swanson. I felt it was kind of something, there's a connection there somehow. But anyway, my mother was Austrian, my father was English, and actually I was born in England. But my mother in particular, she wasn't an artist. However, she was an incredible gardener, and her amazing colors in the gardens were in some ways, I think, artistic. But as for my family, I have 2 sons and a daughter. The 2 sons were excellent in art in high school, but haven't done really anything outside of that. But I'm finding my grandchildren are really excited that I do art. And one thing, when they come to visit for a few days at a time on their own, I always clear off the dining room table and put all kinds of artistic stuff out there and just let them go to it. And I find rather than always, showing them a craft, we'll make this craft with this, cut this, glue that, just leave it open-ended. And I'm always amazed with the things that they come up with. So I'm really happy that I see them doing those kinds of things. And my parents, as much as I love them dearly and so on, but I could never see them sort of letting kids going wild at the dining room table and having a big mess or whatever. It's just a different generation, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
I had that luxury growing up. Yeah. I think maybe because I needed something to do, I was a hyper kid. My mother set me down here. Here's some paper. Go draw for a while. Go be quiet for a while.
Good. That's good. Well, I loved to color as a kid. I was big on coloring books. So I know that's a little different, but still, I don't know. It was something that I always enjoyed. So again, it's sort of going back to colors. Yeah.
Suzette, you and I were French Canadian. Peter, you were born in England. Olga, you're born in England.
Yes.
Michelle Rose is from England.
Hmm.
She was supposed to join us today. She even has the full accent.
No.
Trying to start some French-English war here?
Why, it just occurred to me when Olga said I was born in England, I thought, how did that even happen? I didn't know that. Just
I know.
interesting
Crazy.
observation how that turned out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's how I got the name Olga, and my maiden name was Campbell. So, yeah.
Wow.
Anyway.
Wow.
Well, mine's the same mix. Suzette being French, Terry being completely English. So
That sounds good together, though. That's a very good artist name, I find.
It
Yeah.
is. Absolutely it is. And what about your peer groups? Do you have a lot of, say, artist friends, painters, potters, sculptors, musicians in your life? Or do you all have engineers and lawyers and doctors?
I don't talk to them if they're not involved in the arts.
You don't talk to them? Not involved in the arts.
I think it's just a matter of the circles you travel in. Certainly, since college, everyone I know, not everyone, but the bulk of them are involved in art in some way. And so you spend the bulk of your time hanging around the gallery, telling them about your problems and if they'll listen. And so, yeah, I would say the majority of my acquaintances and friends are involved in the arts.
Well, for me, it's a range. A lot of artists, obviously, singers. I think there's some singers around. Definitely, when I lived in Port Stanley, I also hang out with farmers and engineers. A lot of engineers. I mainly because in university I hung out with the engineers. I didn't party with the artists. I didn't have enough goth going on, so I had the red leather jacket and overall
Hair color, right?
spiked hair. I looked like Joan Jett. So I hung out with the engineers because they like to ski and party and go to the really great music halls. So
Well, I'd say for me, I tend to have more friends that are non-artists, and I think part of it is the fact that I'm compared with both of or all of you. I'm relatively new to the art scene, like 5 years. So obviously, you would have developed a lot more friendships, I'm sure, over the years than I would have. My friends are all in other things. But the nice thing is that they all appreciate art, which is a nice thing, and are very interested in what's going on. And as a result of me too, often want to go visit galleries or whatever and ask me about different things that are going on in the community. So yeah, it's a mixture. Yeah. Mhm.
I said graphic artists. What else? I'm a small town girl, so that has an influence on the type of people. I also sail, so I've got boater friends that
Oh, wow.
they're a whole
When
different.
you say small town, do you mean like banjo playing small town or?
No, like Port Stanley party towns, tourist towns. Laura, Fergus. Yeah.
Well, I'm just an hour. I live in London, and I'm just an hour from Port Stanley.
Yes, you know what
But the interesting thing is how I got connected to Matilda Swanson was 4 years ago. My son Ian and his wife and two little girls bought a ski place in the Beaver Valley in Kimberley. And so I go up quite often, for a few days at a time. And I just love that whole area, I must say, both in through all the seasons. Love it. So
Olga, you're tapping into my next question here.
Oh, well.
I wasn't expecting that. My next question is, all galleries are different. All artists are different. what is the process behind choosing a gallery that best suits you and your work? And then how do you then go by approaching the gallery to represent you?
It's probably one of the biggest questions I get asked as a teacher is how you get a gallery. And one of the things that I've learned is that galleries, for the most part, are inundated with requests to represent them. And it's really is the luck of the draw. I must admit, my approach has not been proactive. It's more of a, I've been approached by galleries rather than the other way around. And I do find that if you are going to approach galleries, that it's best to do it in form of a portfolio that you can leave with them, if preferably mail or email to them. And so that, because they're not going to want to take the time to, and it's tough to look at someone's work and say, oh, you really suck. You should find somewhere else to go. They don't want to do that, and it's not always about whether you've got the right work for the gallery. They know what they can sell. You may have the wrong price point. I know a couple of times that my price point was considered too low for a couple of galleries I approached, and so for the most part, I don't find it that rewarding approaching the galleries. It's you get your name out there, you try to do as much to get noticed, and then hopefully that the galleries will show an interest. Mostly, I think galleries are interested in painters that are selling, and so when you get a good sales record, then obviously, I mean, they're in business. They're not a show me gallery.
Well, I've had a vast range of experience in that whole department. For the first 20 years of my career, I spent hustling it myself at outdoor shows. And that's actually how I picked up most of the galleries, because they saw the work and the range and how much I produced. So that's how I picked up many galleries. Many of those have since disappeared with the, some of the market crashes and or health issues. They've closed, or except now I'm at an age where hustling the outdoor shows, I was hoping not to have to do that anymore, because those cold calls are brutal. And where I've had success is if I have been frequenting that gallery. If I like the work in it, there's a cue. I like the work in that gallery, and I like the people running it, and they like me, I know it'll do okay. And I would, if anyone's considering it, they should visit all the galleries they're thinking of. Don't just flog it around thinking, otherwise it's just a waste of time and effort on your part, I think, to do such a, leave a CD or send an email and ask the process. But I think the personal one-on-one connection that ultimately makes the difference. And I know when I met Sarah, I was like, yep, this is the one I want to be in. Been to others, and
you rejected them.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, it was actually through outdoor shows. And it used to be I sold 60% of my artwork. I have an accounting background. 60% of it myself and 40% the gallery sold. Well, then it started to switch the other way around. I thought, well, why am I working my butt off and getting tendonitis from carrying all this stuff and setting up and running around all of Ontario to do these shows? And I thought, okay, well, I'll give that over to the galleries, step back from that. And that worked for a while, but now the way the market's changed and the number of galleries that closed, I've got to start the hustle again myself.
Well, I went to this one gallery and it had a black and white cat. And then found out there were 2 black and white cats. So I said, this gallery is perfect. because again, there's kind of a karma here because I used to have a black and white cat named Tinkerbell, and so as soon as I saw Sarah's cats, I went, oh my gosh, my art belongs here. It's so incredible.
There are signs. Yes, there are signs. Big, small.
So there's a big reason why that particular gallery. And then I also have a what's called a fractional ownership up in Dwight, which is between Huntsville and Dorset area, close to Algonquin Park. And there's an art gallery there that I connected with and really like. And so they take some pieces for the summer. They're not open all year as a lot of those places.
It's a great spot too. I was there last summer. It's really great. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have between that and Matilda Swanson, and then I live in London, and I'm just a couple blocks from another gallery, the Westland, and they ask me to do their Christmas and usually their square show. So, but I have to be honest, I'm not in the same league of paintings that Suzette and Peter are in. I mean, they do an incredible, they're very prolific painters, whereas I don't even have a website, and I do that on purpose because I just create what I really enjoy creating and take small batches around. So that's, yeah, for me, it's perfect. Yeah.
But it works too though, Olga, because people love your work. Not a day goes by where people don't talk about your work and how much they enjoy it.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. And here's another little thing. I do those tiny little paintings, but I find that, to be honest, a lot of painters, why would they bother with those? Because they love to do the big ones. And so I fill in a little bit of a gap where some painters, it's just not worth their while to do them. Whereas I'm happy to do them, and someone gets to take home a little souvenir from their special vacation or a memory of something. So yeah, anyway.
Now, Peter, you mentioned it earlier that galleries are inundated. And I would say we get at least minimum of four submissions a day. And a lot of it isn't up to par, up to standards, or it doesn't suit the gallery. And I often think, when I receive these, I think, have you looked at the website? Have you walked through the gallery because a lot of the work just doesn't fit in. It doesn't make any sense with what we're offering and what our gallery is about. It's much more suitable to different galleries. So I was just curious from the artist perspective, how because you're all in galleries, and what advice you'd offer. So I think everything you said about that, Peter, was pretty correct. Pretty correct.
Well, I think one of the things when you say that they're not looking at what your gallery is about, I think a lot of times art is very egocentric. Like, they're producing something they think is amazing. The fact that your gallery doesn't suit that, they can't necessarily see it. They often think your gallery should be selling this because this is the real art. This is the real thing.
I have that a lot.
So that's about ego.
And
that's not like basic Sesame Street. Which one of these things does not look like the other? Which one of these is not the same? They missed that episode.
I have that happen more often than not. And what I find interesting is the real professional artist. There is no ego. You're very humble. And you think, really, you want my art in here? You think I'm a good fit? Really? Are you sure? And or they'll just walk through, and I know they're an artist, and I know they're a good artist because they're not saying they're an artist. And it's the people who walk in and they walk straight towards me and they say, how can I get in here? And I almost innately know I don't really think you're right for this space, because they're not even looking at they're not taking it in, soaking it in. It's not registering with them. And then when they do, I offer them the process, email us a certain number of photos of your paintings, the dimensions, the price point, the website, and your social media pages. Most of them don't send me any of that. They just send me the images. They all have the same look. They all have a very similar look to it, which I also find quite fascinating. And I'd like to figure that out. Psychology of that, of all of that process.
The paintings have the same look?
Yes. Yes. They're all very, very similar in style and in ability. In color scheme.
And would you say this is a low
Yes.
level ability? Yeah. And that's probably because as you're learning painting, you're going through the same errors. But one thing I might add that email is definitely very easy, but it's also very easy to delete and to skip through. And just one of the principles of advertising, having a little bit of a marketing background, is hard copy, just a one page of copies of with your information and your work mailed several times, because we might get there when it's a bad cat day and one of the cats is on the counter.
Yeah.
And so it gets tossed out. And so the advantage to hitting someone on several days is like over time is that you may catch Sarah or the gallery owner in the right mood.
I remember when Olga came in, Olga had emailed me. I think she had emailed me, and
Yeah.
I glanced at the images, but we get so many. I glanced at the images, and then I think, did you call me also? You left a message, and then she showed up. And I was like, I don't like this. And then she was just really sweet. And then she showed me the art, and I thought, okay, yes. And so
Being
one
really
time it
sweet
works.
is hard for some of us.
But look at her, she's so cute, right? So she can get away with anything. Because most people, when they do come in and they're, not that Olga was pushy, she was very sweet, but some of them are very pushy and they say, I have all this art in the car. And I said, no, you need to make an appointment. You need to make an appointment. Be respectful.
Yeah.
What is the best piece of art advice you've ever received?
Oh, there's a thing.
That's interesting. Okay.
I'm not sure if I've read this from any one location, but to me, one of the best things you can do is see as much art as you can, because you're going to learn more from seeing art, and sometimes it's daunting when I'm looking at art online and saying, holy crap, there are one hell of a lot of amazing painters out there.
Yes.
And nothing like my work, and some like my work, and but each piece that you see is adding something to the fuel, your creative fuel. Like art doesn't come from nowhere. You need to put that information in, and sometimes it's going to bubble in totally strange ways. But it's to me that's why I think we are so lucky to live in the age we do, because we can see so much art. Oh, and the other important thing is take one of my classes.
I think for me was never stop learning. Was the best advice I got, and to experiment, play, find your groove, follow it through. But I think we also need to keep juicing ourselves up, meaning we got to go out there and find inspiration. And I think that's the one piece of advice that I have to apply on a more regular basis. Like, get out there, go camping, go out and have some new experiences, go dancing, go out and have some fun, because that comes right back to the work. I think my best ski pieces have come every time after I've gone skiing the day before, and then boom, I've got this great little energetic painting because I'm still feeling the energy of that activity. So don't stop learning. Experience the world in its totality, get out there. And what's the other thing? Yeah, I think I agree with Peter. Like, you got to keep going out there and filling up the tank and seeing what else is being produced. Because I know for me, I finally pursued I got big. I started doing big paintings after I went to Europe in 2015. And prior to that, all I did was little tiny things for years. pump out 500 little tiny paintings. And then after Europe, I was like, wow, I did my first 72 by 60, and then I kept going with that. And it was only because of that experience that I developed, I guess, enough confidence, or I wanted to be like those artists I saw in Europe, I thought I could do it. So I agree with Peter. Keep getting out there.
Well, I guess that makes it unanimous, because I'd say the same kind of thing, because I find I am inspired by other artists, and I can look at something and then interpret it in my own way. And of course, being an encaustic, it comes out different looking anyway, but often if something moves you in another artist's piece, you can kind of learn from it and say, oh, I could try something like that. And it comes out not looking much like that at all, but it gave you the kind of kick to go and, yeah, I can try that. I want to do that. Yeah. Yeah.
One thing I'd like to add, Sarah, is that I don't know if I've heard this, but there seems to be a huge amount of focus on artists trying to develop a style. And to me, you should, excuse my French, but fuck style. That wasn't directed at the French people, but the people get so caught up in trying to get a specific look instead of just going out learning to paint. The style is going to come from within. It's just the way you move the brush, the way you see colors.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many people that get so caught in this narrow groove, and they say, well, that's my style. No, that's a style of painting. It's not your style. Mm-hmm. And I think often style is a big encumbrance. This should be an exciting, exploratory trip that we're on, that we're exploring all sorts of different approaches.
I agree.
Do you like how I'm trying to position the sun just behind my head there?
You are glowing. You're glowing, yes.
Yeah, I agree with you, Peter. I often have artists come in and they say they're struggling to find their style, and when they do, then they'll send me their work. And I don't know, maybe unsolicited advice is you stop looking for your style, because you have it. And when you're looking for your style, you're fighting yourself and you're fighting your style. However, if you want to paint a tree, just start painting the tree and that's your style, and then develop it, right? It's all within us. It's all in us. We have our style. Just, yeah, exactly what you said, Peter.
Yeah, you don't need to look
with each other for once. Peter?
Well, the only thing I'd like to mention, having been in Peter's class, and it was a step-by-step, Peter, and all these students absolutely have to do every single stroke that you do. Like, they have to be exactly like you. And I remember mine paintings weren't quite the same, but I was really kind of shocked at how people were like, oh, it had to be exactly like Peter's, which kind of, I thought was kind of interesting. Maybe you'd like to comment, Peter, I don't know.
When you say that they have to, is that Peter cracking the whip? Or is that, is that people wanting to be exactly like Peter? Because Peter is, Peter is amazing.
Yes, yeah.
Get your tongue out of the cheek when you're saying that. But one of the things that when you're in a workshop like that, you should be trying to do something similar, because I don't care what the end result is, but you're trying to learn a language and a technique. But at the end of the day, some of my favorite paintings are the ones that are nothing like mine. And I say, wow, I want to do a trade because they came out where that person's came out. But it is a worthy goal to try and copy in a class that, because you are trying to develop that technique or that particular thing. But again, it's great that if yours doesn't work out that way, You've
Yeah,
learned something.
no, I wasn't criticizing your class, Peter. I just found that
No, I didn't think you were.
people were absolutely obsessed that it had to be exactly like it. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Well, that's why they came to your class.
I think
Whereas
Well,
I
also,
came
they could be
to-
accountants.
Yeah,
They're very fussy about exactness.
they could have mental health issues too. I don't know. But anyway, no,
I think Peter, we could give Peter the term of a cult leader. That's his students,
I'm
Peter's a
sending
cult
you
leader.
some Kool-Aid.
All the paint fumes.
oh dear.
So what do you wish to communicate through your work?
Me, it's life. I want people to see the energy of life. And, just that we occupy a very interesting world. And I think I want people to see a little differently, sort of break outside of, I grew up drawing just like Paul Calais, believe it or not, once upon a time. And I saw The Wall. Remember the movie, The Wall? And, those marching hammers in one of the episodes just kind of blew me away. And, I remember from that point forth, I never did another highly realistic image again. I became creative. I broke outside that. I didn't care. It was like, and I also got bored. Realism was boring. I'm sorry. High realism. I want something more from my art, I guess, and I hope that other people will ask more of it as well. And it's a language for me that was highly necessary in my growth as a person. So
Interesting. I guess with me, I just want people to look at a piece and kind of smile. And if I do that, hey, that makes me happy. So one thing I'd like to mention, and it made me think, Suzette, when you were talking, I don't know if the three of you watched the Canadian Landscape Painter of the Year program on Makefold.
yeah, I know the artists in it. Yep.
Yeah, did you guys watch that at all?
I haven't seen it.
No, well, you need to see it, Peter. It's just very interesting, and there was quite a range of painters in it. But anyway, you need to look that up and watch it. It was kind of interesting. But yeah, okay.
For me, it's never been about trying to say something. My whole life, I have been a maker. To me, the paint to the canvas or banging a piece of wood together or gardening, it's all the same. It's about an innate need to create. And the fact that I can create something that people are interested in buying is wonderful. And I probably would not paint as much if people weren't buying them, but I would be making. This morning I was down in my workshop banging pieces of wood together. I'm already eager to get out in the garden. It's about making. I've always stumbled on the word artist and deeper meaning. I always loved the term maker. There was a store in Owen Sound at one time, and they called it makers. And I like to think of myself as a maker, not an artist. There's too much pretense that comes with the word artist. I like maker, and I do it because I love it. And it's wonderful that people want to buy it too.
The great creator.
That was
I'm leaving that for the guy that's a little higher than my position right now.
You're gonna get struck by lightning.
very well said. Yeah.
I don't know about you guys. I'm one of those people, I have to be doing something. And he is completely right in the whole concept of maker. I'm dying to go out in the garden. Every time I go out, I rake something here or rake something there where it seems a little drier. And I like the artistry of gardening, like your mother, Olga. Like, to me, I take such a great, actually, it's hard for me to paint in the summer because I spend more time in the garden.
Hmm.
I agree with Peter where, struggling with, I also struggle with the term artist. And I think for me, I prefer the term creative. And once you're a creative person, you're creative in the way you dress, in the way you make your home, in the way you garden, in the way you make your food, in everything you
Decorate your
create,
home.
you're creative. That's my take on it. And that's how I've always lived my life. And I would never, I would never call myself an artist, but definitely a creative person.
Oh,
Well,
you
one of
are.
the things it's good to be specific, in that your case, we're painters.
Yes.
Uh, because creative, it could be musicians, or
Yes.
I guess even I've heard accountants can be creative, but
Well, accountants, I do
apparently they
think,
go
can
to
be
jail.
creative with numbers for sure. Yeah, you're right.
you
But some people, some artists don't want to be called, or some painters don't want to be called painters, and even I want to say art buyers. Some clients want to hear the term artist rather than painter, whatever that is. I mean, we all have our own opinions of how, yeah, a house painter.
Sarah, I'm all for whatever you're going to do to get that painting out the door. You can call me an asshole if you want.
Well, you raised a question. I was thinking as you were talking a minute ago, Sarah, I wondered if any of you have met a painter, artist, whatever you would like to call them, someone that you really admired but had never met, like really loved their work, and then got to meet them in person and were disappointed. Has that ever happened to you?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah, go. Do you want to?
I can't say names. That would be.
Oh no, but
I was in a class with someone, and I had thought she was really wonderful. And my friend and I, we were having a great time. We were taking an encaustic course,
oh,
and I produced like a crap load of stuff, and so did she. And this woman was actually, it got the impression that she was uncomfortable by what we were putting out. And anyway, yeah, I didn't have a good response. She was not enjoying the whole creative process because she had a particular mission, and she had taken all the fun out of everything, and we kind of ignored her, which is too bad. I thought maybe there could have been more of a connection, but that was a big disappointment.
To answer your question, Olga, I like your question, but for me it's the opposite. I've seen art from artists, painters, whatever we're gonna call them, that I didn't particularly care for. I think they were well done. They're talented, well done, but didn't really speak to me until I started getting to know the artist.
oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And then my viewpoint of their art changed, and now their art does speak to me. Now there is I view it in a different way, which is interesting. And sometimes I look around the gallery, and to be honest, I am in the, I do need to earn a living, so I have art that I carry that I wouldn't necessarily put on my walls, but I know other people, it speaks to them. And yeah, the process of getting to know the artist and truly enjoying the artist has changed my perspective on their art, and I would now consider buying one just for having that artist energy in my own space.
That's an interesting thing. You obviously made a connection with them, and that transferred to their art.
Yeah, the other way around. Yeah, and but I don't recall having. Generally, when I really enjoy a person's art, and then when I get to meet them, they really are pretty awesome. So I haven't had that experience yet. I'm sure it might happen at some point. Peter?
I guess I've never connected or have had any expectation of who a person is because of their art. I can see some absolutely amazing work done by some incredibly imbecilic people. and some incredibly nice people that can't paint at all.
Yes, true.
I'm not sure I see any real correlation between ability and personality. Often high ability can create some negative personality traits, but I've seen those same traits in people that can't paint at all, or think they can. So it's people are wonderful and awful and everything in between.
Well, that's an interesting observation that the people in the art can be, totally
Imbeciles.
different. Yeah.
Artists can be imbeciles too. On that note, let's call it a day. Thank you, everyone, for participating in the discussion. Thank you to everyone who's watching, and stay safe out there.